We're getting closer and closer to the puck dropping on the NHL season. We've got ice being laid down. Still no McTavish signing, but we're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everydayers. Thanks for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And I'm Kyle Carr. I'm a lifelong Anaheim Ducks fan. I've spent multiple years covering collegiate sports, including college hockey. But today, as we always do on Locked On Ducks, we're talking about the Anaheim Ducks. And today I do have a special guest. I am joined by Doug Stolhand from the Puck Podcast. Welcome in, Doug. How are you?
I'm very good, Kyle. Thank you for having me, and always good to talk Ducks, even in the off season.
Absolutely. And it's getting to that point where it's almost exciting to talk about the Ducks in the offseason because you know they're going to have a good season ahead of them. Before we get into that, could you tell the fans just kind of your capacity of covering the Ducks and how long you've been in this game?
Well, I've been in the game for about 30 years now. Started covering the Ducks shortly after their creation in the mid-90s as a member of the media, and have been doing the Puck Podcast now. This is our 20th straight season with no weeks off. So much like you, there is no off season for the Puck Podcast. We do a show every single week covering all 32 teams around the NHL, which includes the Ducks. When we started out, there were only 30 teams, now 32. And you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube.
Absolutely. And with the long resume that you do have and covering the Anaheim Ducks, what would you say after last season and how things have occurred in the offseason? What is the state of the Ducks for you?
Well, I think we're finally seeing some reasons for optimism and some reasons for excitement. The last 4 years have been particularly brutal. Dallas Eakins was never put in a position to succeed as a head coach. He had an absolute garbage roster, and Scotty Bowman in his prime might have gotten a few more points out of him. Certainly would have had a better structure of the game, but that team's not going anywhere. There just wasn't enough talent up and down the roster. When Greg Cronin got hired, I was optimistic. I thought, finally, we got a new change here. I liked the way he was working the guys harder in practice and instilling some things, but the two guys combined, I think Dallas Eakins was all carrot and Greg Cronin was all stick. You need a mixture of both. I think we have that. And the biggest reason for optimism was the coaching change. When they fired Greg Cronin, it was like opening a window in a smoke-filled room and letting some fresh air in finally. And the Ducks, not even knowing who they were going to hire, but just Greg Cronin was not working with the Ducks. So when they hired Coach Q, obviously there's a lot of controversy that comes with that, but the competence and the accomplishments as a head coach cannot be overstated. I think he's coached for 24 or 25 years in the NHL as a head coach, and he has one losing season. He's had a winning record 99% of his time behind the NHL bench with a variety of teams and a variety of situations. And his comparable, as he said in his opening press conference, him and Verbeek, his experience taking over a Blackhawks team that was similar in their rebuild to where the Ducks are, with similar young core, and getting them to the playoffs immediately will translate well here. Now, obviously, hockey is a different sport, but the state of the Ducks is finally optimistic, I think, after 6 or 7 years of really having no expectations other than just, I hope they play better than I expect them to.
Absolutely. And we were kind of given this promise from Pat Verbeek as the season ended that after the Quenneville hiring, that the pocketbook, the checkbook was wide open for them, and they were going to go, I don't want to say it, but balls to the wall on bringing people to the Ducks. But did you feel like that happened this season?
Well, no, but I obviously don't think the opportunity was there either. By the time we got to free agency, the the preview market was gone. So we didn't have a chance to even make a bid on Mitch Marner. And who knows what they would have opened the checkbook for him if he was available, but he never made it to free agency. A lot of the top players that we may have pursued were not available. And I'm fine with Verbeek taking a little bit more of a conservative approach of not just spending money for the sake of spending it, but making sure it's the right fit, a player that he wants here for multiple years that is going to work with the long-term plan that they have. I think they still have Jeff Solomon as the capologist working in the front office, and he is a very good numbers guy and make sure that the team is not only working this season, but is ready to work in years to come. So I'm disappointed in what overall happened, because when he says that, and just like last year, when he said, we're going to be aggressive, we're looking for this and we're looking for this. The problem with that statement is, as much as I appreciate his honesty, the problem with that statement is that it's very subjective, and to each that means different things. So it's going to set the expectations. He can't be specific because of tampering rules. He can't say we're going to pursue these players. So it's left to our imaginations and our own desires of who they go after. And it feeds on itself, the echo chamber within Ducks fan base, because to the point that by the time free agency comes around, we expect to get every player. We're like Maple Leafs fans. Every player is coming to the Ducks on a cheap deal. So it's a double-edged sword for him. But ultimately, he did add talent. He has improved the team. The roster is better today than it was when they left the ice in April. And that's all he can do each summer. And there's still a month left before rookie camp gets going and then training camp. So trades may still happen. As the season gets closer, we may see teams in a cap crunch looking to offload some players. We may still see some acquisition of talent here before the season begins.
And obviously the question of the day, what is your thoughts with McTavish? Do you think it's going to be a done deal? Is it all hearsay that he's going to go somewhere else and it's just a matter of getting the term figured out?
Yeah, I don't believe he's going to go anywhere at all. I think, as you know, doing a show every day, as I know, doing a show every week, you need something to talk about. And beat writers and NHL reporters and media members are no different. So if they're looking to get a lot of media companies still look at clicks, views, likes, comments, all that stuff. What's going to get you that kind of content if you're in a major market that has a large fan base? Is it going to be something talking about a player going fishing in the offseason, or is it going to be the potential of getting Mason McTavish for spare parts via trade? So you're going to see a lot of those articles. I give them no credence. One thing we all know as Ducks fans is this team is extremely tight-lipped when it comes to media leaks. None of us knew anything about Chris Kreider coming to town before it happened. That is not, there's no rumors coming out of Anaheim. So any report you see that says rumors state, I'm not buying that at all. Mason McTavish said he wants to stay here. He wants to be here long term. He seems like exactly the type of player GM Pat Verbeek would covet and want to keep around, unlike some of the players he's shipped out in recent years. So there's no reason to think he's not happy with that style of play or the player. This is how the Ducks do things. There's no urgency to get it done here on August 16th, August 17th. There's no urgency. There will be urgency a month from now. And that's when I start seeing the traction. So I think it'll get done. I really hope that Verbeek has learned his lesson from the Drysdale and Zegras negotiations of a couple of years ago and makes sure to get him under contract before training camp starts. He cannot afford to miss time with the new coaching staff, the new systems, and developing chemistry with his new line mates. That is imperative, in my opinion. So yes, take your time, get the best deal for the team and the player, but get it done before training camp begins.
Yeah, I really hope it comes to a close before training camp. I mean, they've already announced the rookie training little session and then that tournament that they're going to have. So at least we'll have some hockey, but I really want to see McTavish as a Duck locked in day one of training camp, because you're right. It's something we cannot afford with this new staff and really getting in with the guys. And I mean, with now Mikael Granlund coming in, that's kind of a question of like, is he going to be taking over center? Is he going to be a winger for McTavish? Where's he going to slot in? So there's a lot of things that need to get figured out. And just having that shadow of the contract will not help anything like that.
No, especially like you mentioned Granlund, and that's a good point, because if McTavish is not there, then Coach Q and his staff may slide Granlund to center early in camp because they need that second line center. That may not be where he ultimately plays, and McTavish may take over as center. So he's wasting reps as a center when he's not going to be there ultimately for the full season, as opposed to on day one, we can install a line with Granlund on McTavish's wing, and they can start developing chemistry, and they know each other's. The more time you spend in camp, because it's not really that long, it's 2 or 3 weeks before the regular season begins. The more time you spend with that, doing the systems, doing the reps, learning where each other likes to go in different situations, the better you're going to get going on October 7th or October 9th when we play the Kraken. So I would like to see it done, but again, I hope Verbeek values that more than he values saving a little bit of money. And the other part of it, of course, is injuries. The less training camp you go to, the more susceptible you are to injuries at the start of the season. In my opinion, soft tissue injuries, you're not as battle hardened, you're not as ready to go in NHL games. So, like I said, it's imperative. I'm being patient. I'm not panicking. We've seen this movie before, but I'd like to see it done within the next 4 or 5 weeks at the latest.
Absolutely. And you mentioned October 9th. The Ducks have a pretty interesting start to this season with their schedule, and we'll get into what matchups we're looking into right after this. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Love that. Don't like Excel if I don't have to use it. With Monarch Money, it just puts it right there. It's a nice clear picture. I don't have to go try to hunt down all my different accounts and put it all together, figure out the books. Monarch Money does it for me. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's a 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Now we are back, and we are going to look at the upcoming schedule. There's some pretty interesting matchups at the beginning of the year. Doesn't really seem like they get a tough schedule until kind of more the middle end of the year, which could be a little concerning. But Doug, what are some matchups that you're marking on your calendar this year?
Well, obviously, any game against the Kings or the Golden Knights, those are the games that you look at as kind of barometers. The Oilers, because those are the top 3 teams in the Pacific Division, and all Pacific Division teams. I think this year more than most, I'm really going to be watching the games, and it starts right there on October 9th against Pacific Division opponents, because those are the 4-point games where you can really move up or down the standings. And if the Ducks take care of their business against their Pacific Division opponents, it'll help them potentially reach a top 3 finish and get that automatic playoff berth. And if they can do that, we're all going to be very happy, regardless of how the season ends. We just want to see meaningful hockey again. But
absolutely,
I think that is where I'm going to be focused most of my. I mean, obviously, you want them to win every game, but when they play a Pacific Division opponent specifically, I want them to win in regulation, get those 2 points, don't give the other team any, and move themselves up the standings and keep them from moving.
And when it comes to the entire Western Conference as a whole, are you concerned that the Central might be the more powerhouse division this year, or do you feel like the Pacific might give the Central a run for their money this year?
Central is definitely, I think, better from top to bottom. When you look at the top team in the Western Conference, it's been the Edmonton Oilers the last couple of years, but I don't know if that's going to continue going forward. It's tough to stay at the top of the mountain. So, but when you look at Dallas, obviously that's an elite team. Winnipeg had a great regular season and are expected to be very good again in the regular season. I don't know about the playoffs, but in the regular season. St. Louis and Minnesota both look like good teams. I'm never sure what to expect with the Wild. They overachieved, in my opinion, last year, but who's to say they don't do that again? And you've got some decent depth. Nashville was so bad last year, but was a playoff team 2 years ago, and they stood pat. Can they use the chemistry? Can they have a bounce back season and be more competitive this year? So that's a team that could be a sleeper as well. They still have some very good talent in there, a good goalie, a good defenseman, some elite forwards. So there's nothing saying they can't be a competitive team as well. I don't obviously expect anything from Chicago, but you never know. It's a wide open thing. The Pacific, I think, is pretty wide open. Other than Vegas and Edmonton, I don't think there's a team that's locked for a playoff spot. And I know the Kings have made the playoffs multiple years in a row, but that roster is old, and that's not the way the league is going. I think that's a team that if anybody is going to fall out from those automatic playoff berths, it's Los Angeles is the candidate. I don't think it would be Edmonton or Vegas. And then Calgary and Vancouver, again, I don't know what to expect. They're kind of like in there with the Ducks. So I think it's a wide open race in the Pacific. But Western Conference overall, there's playoff berths to be had if the Ducks take advantage.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's the window's open now more than it ever has been for Anaheim, regardless of the coaching change and everything. I just think they're kind of in this position of they have a pretty locked in core that's had the experience of playing somewhat meaningful minutes now with the last year chase and really being comfortable with each other. And I'm really hoping that they come out of the gate strong. I think that's been a little bit of a crutch for Anaheim, is having a weak beginning of the season. Like maybe they'll win their first 5 games and look good, but then they blow it out by the time we get to November, and it's like,
right,
what happened? They had like, it's like everyone else finally was like, oh, we're gonna play hockey now. And then the Ducks like, oh, this is the level we're supposed to be at.
Well, the metrics are the key. Like, I'm gonna obviously be watching every game hoping the Ducks win, but when you've got Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas as pretty much guaranteed playoff berths to me in the Central, and then in the West, I think Vegas, or in the Pacific, you've got Vegas and Edmonton. That's 5 of the 8. The other 3 are pretty wide open. But the Ducks start is interesting. You bring that up because yes, I want them to win the games, but more importantly, I want to see different sets of stats coming out of those games. Are the Ducks out shooting their opponent? Are the Ducks winning faceoffs? Are the power play and penalty kill competent? If those things are working and the Ducks are still losing the game because of puck luck or a soft goal here and there, I'm not going to say I'm okay with it, but I won't panic. If the Ducks are still getting outplayed on a nightly basis and are lucky to steal points, as we've seen the last 4 years, even if they're winning games, I'll be concerned because that's not sustainable over the course of a season. So if we see some improvement in the way the Ducks play on the stat sheet, regardless of the wins or losses in the first month, I will be confident that over the course of the season, those are going to translate into wins and points, and the Ducks will get where they need to be. And the coaching staff from top to bottom is accomplished, experienced, and I think more competent than we've seen maybe since they won the Stanley Cup in 2007.
And we haven't even talked about the assistant coaches that have been hired by Anaheim, which Jay Woodcroft was apparently, like, he was touted as going to be the guy that they were hiring if Quenneville didn't work or however it was panning out. And for them to bring him in either way, like, talk about a score right there.
Oh, for sure. Because you've got, as we all know in the professional world, when you go from one company to another, let's say you get let go, there's a closure, whatever the case may be, and you go to another company, a lot of times they'll say you're overqualified for this job. You were at this level, now you're applying for a level below that, you're overqualified. And I always I've used in the past the analogy of I was a head coach for the other company. I'm willing to be an assistant coach here, and I can make your job easier because I know what the head coach needs from the assistant coach. That's what Jay Woodcroft is going to do for Coach Q. One, they have communication from the past, so they can pick up right where they left off, and they will be able to communicate well. But Woodcroft knows exactly what Quenneville needs him to do, what I can take off your plate, and what I can focus on, so that you can look at the bigger picture. And then you've got McGill working on the penalty kill. He's been one of the penalty kill whisperers for the last few years. Every penalty kill he takes over is outstanding. And he talked about it with Alexis Downey on the Ducks interview about how there are simple things you can do to improve this team, and he expects them to improve immediately. So the penalty kill and power play, with Woodcroft running the power play, should be much better, in addition to the fact that they've added talented players that can make that better. We're all going to love Chris Kreider sitting in front of the net. That is a presence we have not had since Corey Perry. And if they can have somebody set up in front of the net with a couple of skilled defensemen getting their shots through from the point, whether it's Lacombe, Minchikov, Zellweger, whomever it may be, that power play is suddenly going to look a lot better, a lot more dangerous. And we're going to actually lean forward when the Ducks get a power play, as opposed to getting up and going and getting something to drink and being like, I can't watch this crime scene for another 2 minutes.
Might as well just make us shorthanded while we're at it.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Can we delay that so that when we're shorthanded, we just go to 4-on-4 delayed penalty? My God.
Use some open ice. Well, you mentioned a bunch of players there that could potentially really step up this year, and we'll get into the ins and outs of who we are looking forward to seeing in Ducks Orange this year right after this. All right, I'm here with Doug from the Puck Podcast, and we have been talking about the Anaheim Ducks and their potential season coming up, but we got to look at the individual players on the ice. So, Doug, kind of looking at with the draft being the most recent thing that happened, before we get into the current roster, who are some of the prospects that you've seen Anaheim pull that you're looking forward to see play in the NHL, whether it's this year or in the next couple of years?
The two that obviously stand out, I think, are like everybody. I can't wait to see Stan Solberg make the NHL and see that physical presence. I think him in camp this year, learning firsthand from Trouba and Gudis how to be a physical presence on defense while still being responsible defensively and not ending up in the penalty box, will be huge for his development. And then Beckett Seneca, a guy with top end skill to score and create plays, but also some nastiness. Ducks fans that are old enough to remember Dustin Penner on this team, he was the gentle giant, and he just did not use that physical size to his benefit. And Seneca, as a late bloomer, learned how to play the game as a small player and learned that you got to be a little bit rough and in dirty areas, and is taking that now that he has a bigger frame and is being a bully on the ice. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. He won't be able to be that bully in the NHL because they're grown men as opposed to teenagers that he's been playing against in juniors, but still that mentality of attacking the ice, not shying away from physical contact, and really embracing the role that he has. So really want to see those two. But the one I'm most curious, I think, is Tristan Luneau, a little bit of a forgotten man on the blue line. And I think he might take this opportunity to try and win a spot. We saw it last year. Jackson Lacombe was not the guy that everybody went into the season thinking this guy is going to be the stud defenseman. All he did was prove it day in, day out, and became the best defenseman on the team by the end of the season. Luneau is going to go into camp, I think, and I hope, with that same mentality of make them keep me, give them a reason to keep me on the ice and earn that job. And why do I have to be the third one of the Minchikov, Zellweger, Luneau trio when people are mentioning it? Get me on the ice right now and let's see what I can do.
Yeah. And to have that right shot defenseman and his size, his ability, he's been really fantastic for the San Diego Gulls. And it would be great to really see him come up and get that opportunity. I think he'll take it full charge. And then looking at the guys that are on this roster that have been playing, who do you think is going to be taking the biggest jump this year? We saw the crazy step up by Jackson Lacombe last year. We've seen the confidence kind of come for Leo Carlsson, Cutter Gauthier, obviously playing all 82 games. Out of those players, though, who do you think is going to maybe there's a black ace that you're thinking about, but who's coming up?
Well, all of those guys I expect to be better. I mean, as soon as they hired Coach Q, I thought the Ducks roster, even before they made any additions, is going to look better, faster, stronger, smarter than it was in the past, just because of the coaching and the competence and the situations they're going to be put into. But I think the one that's going to make the biggest leap is going to be Leo Carlsson. I think they're going to look at him as a potential Jonathan Toews in the sense that he's got the skill to be a great two-way center. And I'm not saying it was not tapped in the past, but we know 2 years ago, I thought they gave him kid gloves with we're going to sit you every now and then just to get you rested. And I'm not saying that wasn't the right thing to do. Verbeek was speaking from his experience being worn out as a young player. Of course, players are in a much better conditioning now than they were when Verbeek was a young player. But regardless, that's done. Last year, we saw a huge jump from him after the Four Nations face-off when he went and was in that locker room with his peers and looked around and realized, I'm one of their teammates. I'm at this level of some of the best players in the world. And when he came back, he was a different player. Now he's going to come into camp with more confidence in a third NHL season with competent coaching. I think we're going to see the biggest jump from Leo Carlsson this year. I expect Gauthier to be excellent. I expect the defensemen, Minchkov and Zellweger, to come in with a fresh slate. I hope they emphasize that with the camp, is that you're getting a clean slate. Forget about the mistakes of the past, because it looked like they were playing on eggshells a little bit, worrying about getting pulled. I think they'll be better, but Leo's the guy that I expect to be the biggest jump this season.
If you could set the plus minus for him points wise, where are you putting him?
For Leo, I would play him at 75.
Okay.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
I expect him. I mean, he's going to be a top line guy with Cutter Gauthier, who I expect to be an exceptional player. Like, that was a grown ass man from day one when we saw him at the end 2 seasons ago. We could already see the potential. Last year, what they were doing playing him with Johnston on the fourth line is absolutely beyond my comprehension.
He needs to earn his ice.
Yeah, those days are gone, man. So him starting the full season, as I expect, and he ended this season on a hot streak as well. Remember, he got off to such a bad start last season. He couldn't score a goal for the first few weeks. I expect him to score a goal in the first couple weeks, and that's a streaky player. So I expect him to be a 30-goal scorer, and somebody's going to be setting him up for those goals. I think most of them are going to be Leo, so give him 30 points just from Cutter. Then you add in some points throughout the regular season. I think a 75-point season from him is the days of the Ducks leading scorer being in the 50-point range. Done. We're going to see that by the All-Star break, by the Olympic break, I think. I think we're going to see point-per-game players on Anaheim going forward.
Yeah, it was good to have, nearly 5 skaters with 20 goals last year, which you look at other rosters, though, and you're like, these guys, like, they hit 20 by December. It felt like we're kind of like bragging about that, but it'll be nice to have guys, an actual goal leader and be up in those numbers with the rest of the league. And looking at you mentioned Ross Johnston. Who do you think is not going to be on this roster by the time we get to that trade deadline?
Oh, that's a good question. By the deadline, that's a tough one, because I don't know where the Ducks will be. I'd like to think they're buyers, but the contracts that we have expiring, I could see somebody like Trouba getting moved if need be, because if Luneau establishes himself as a right shot defenseman that earns some time, somebody has to make room for that and for him to grow. And I think the Ducks, even if they're in potential playoff spot, will still look at this year as a building year for the youth, and they want to continue growing them. So I could see Gudas and Trouba potentially being on the market at the end of the season or at the deadline. At forward, it's tough to say that there's a guy. I mean, I know the Ducks fans are all hoping, fingers crossed, that Strome and Killorn are out of here, but
I like the veteran presence.
I do as well. And especially, look, I'm not going to say they're the greatest players, but there's a huge market of the Ducks fan that wanted Fowler out of here. I'll drive him to the airport. I'll help him pack. Let's get him out of here. He immediately went and became a good player with St. Louis. It wasn't Cam Fowler that was the problem. It was the coaching staff, the talent, the systems around Anaheim. So I would caution the same people. Killorn and Strome were being asked to play second line minutes when they are third pairing guys. And I think now that they're slotting a little bit further down the lineup, they're going to look pretty good and they'll fit in pretty well. And they are guys that can move up if you need to in injury. So I would caution people against that, because also if you hate them as a Ducks fan and you see them every day, the other 31 GMs aren't stupid. So they're not going to be like, wow, that guy that can't do anything for the Ducks would really help our roster. I think it's mainly going to be, the trades are going to be less of shedding players that you don't want, as opposed to creating opportunities for young players to get more ice time. And that's why I think Gudas and Trouba might be on the way out, so that Luneau can get more ice time as that right shot defenseman.
Yeah, that is the one area where I've been like puzzling myself or questioning about, is that they really didn't do much with defense, but there's so many young defensemen in this pipeline that could make that jump. And and with Stain Solberg being basically a Gudas Trouba light, if he really catches on, like, I feel like that just opens that door even much, much more.
Yeah, the defense is not the problem at all on this team. When you've got Lacombe, Minchikov, Zellweger, Luneau, Solberg, right there is a massive core to build around. And then you've got two veterans, Gudas and Trouba, that can help mentor those guys and still eat some minutes, much like Dumoulin did for the majority of last season or a couple years ago. That's a team that you can build around. And I'm not worried at all about the defense. The offense, we still need to get those top line guys. I think we've got a lot of middle six guys, but I'm really hoping this year we see Carlsson and Gauthier become those top pairing guys or top line guys, because if that can be a pairing and then you can create a second tier, a second level pairing, that's fine. Rotate somebody in and out on as the trio to change up the chemistry if need be, but keep those pairs together. And I think we saw the template in Chicago with Coach Q, with Kane and Taves. Those two became a duo, and their third partner, whether it was Patrick Sharp or whoever came in, Christopher Beek, people rotated in and out on their wing, but they stayed together and were productive for many years and won cups. That's what I'm hoping we see with the Ducks and Gauthier and Carlsson. And if those two guys can if he can be a 30-goal scorer on the wing and he's a point-per-game player at center, we're cooking with gas all of a sudden, and we can start building. And then you got free agents that want to come play with those guys.
Absolutely.
And the no trade list gets shortened for a lot of players.
Well, it was nice to hear Chris Kreider basically saying that the boys brought him over because of the conversation and the hope and just how the locker room is going. So the fact that they could pull someone like him to come over, and like you said, if they can get going, things are looking pretty great out here. And it's exciting to be on the Ducks train coming up. And there's a lot more that I'm sure we'll have to talk about. Unfortunately, it's all the time we have for today. So we'll have to get together again soon. Once that preseason goes and when the season goes, we'll have to do a little check-in and check the temperature on everything.
Whenever you need me to come on or would like me to come on, please reach out. I'm always happy to talk to the Ducks. It was a thrill to talk to you today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in. Thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Go like and subscribe to the Locked On Ducks podcast. Go like and subscribe to the Puck podcast, where you can hear Doug break everything down with Eddie Garcia from Locked On Kings. And as always, be good out there.